There are more lands in Ghana, but there are also more problems in acquiring land if proper procedure is not followed. If you have tried acquiring a land before, you would know by now that the process is not always smooth and easy. The constraints range from insecurity of land tenure, inadequate land policy, indiscipline in the land market, leading to fraud, conflict, frustrations, and anxiety. So what should we know? What are the various processes involved in acquiring a parcel of land, from purchase to title or deed registration? Where and how can you get a land free from impediments of all sorts? Join me and my guests from the Lands Commission, Ruth Maunyo Esio and Timothy Anyudoho, in the third of our home series on land acquisition and registration. Where can I get a trouble-free land to buy in Accra? Please help me, because you're from the Lands Commission.
Well, anytime I hear trouble-free, I say trouble-free when? It might be trouble-free today, it might not be trouble-free tomorrow. So usually, to answer your question, I would say, what do you need to do to ensure that what you are buying now is covered by the right documentation?
Okay.
That's what I would define as trouble-free. So that's what we have to discuss first.
Okay.
But trouble-free today may not be trouble-free tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes.
But when I say trouble-free, it also means landguard-free and issues-free. Because sometimes you get a land that is duly registered in the person's name.
Yes.
And then it turns out there is an issue.
Yes.
So maybe Ruth, you can help. How does that arise?
Well, like he said, you bought it at a time that there was no trouble, and then something happened. Maybe a dispute arose between the family heads, or there was a chieftaincy problem within the stool that granted the land to you. The new head has come. He also comes with his elders. Maybe they think the first one didn't go through due process in allocating the land, so then he's requesting for everybody to come back and get their documents rectified. Or the new family head thinks that the previous one did not have the right to allocate to you. So then those problems arise. But in all of it, there can always be a way to go about it.
Okay. We will talk about the processes. But Tim, tell us what issues are coming up these days from where you sit.
Well, like you said, urbanization comes with its own problems. So pressure on land, I always set examples. If you go to regions where there's not so much pressure on land, if you go to my small hamlet, you will not find that problems arise. But once urbanization comes up, like in Accra, or in the big cities, Takrade, Kumasi, you find out that the new issues have to do with, and they've always been issues that have just escalated. Double grants, as you're seeing, the issues of litigation, not waiting out the court processes and deciding to take the law into your own hands. So that means this landguardism would arise, the inability of the other law enforcement agencies to ensure that they deal with the other aspects of land problems, such as the criminal aspects, such as distraction, trespass, and in some cases, just purely fraudulent persons posing as an interfamily and intrafamily, as Ruth was saying. If families decide to have disputes among them, there's a challenge then. These are issues that affect land ownership.
Okay. So how do I know? In fact, let's begin this way. Before I buy a land, do I have to cross-check at the Lands Commission to ensure that what I'm buying is duly registered to the person who is selling it to me in the first place? Is there anything like that?
Yes, there is. If you identify the land that you want to acquire, definitely it would belong to someone. You need to locate that person. So let's give ourselves a scenario. Say, I want a land in Teshi, so I find one. Definitely there will be developments within the neighborhood, right? So I can talk to some of the developers. Oh, who are the grantors or owners of land within this area? Which people give grants? Definitely they will direct it to someone. You see the person says, yes, we do grants. The person needs to give you a certain documentation as a basis for their claim that they give grants. Once they give you that documentation, there should be a site plan that will depict the land on paper. With that site plan, then you can come to the Lands Commission to do what we call a search. We'll go through our records and find out if there is any recorded transactions in respect of that parcel of land. If there is, records will reveal it. If not, we would also let you know. So if there is any information and it comes out contrary to what the person is claiming, then you might have to do further checks to see where the issue really, the differences are arising. But if you do and then it confirms the person's claim, then you're one step clear.
So what you use in doing the search is a site plan?
The site plan.
Only the site plan?
Only the site plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this site plan that you're showing, is it different? Can we have different site plans, or there's only one site plan?
They're just different types, but they would all have to be. In 2000, we had a new law, LI 1444, that prescribes the way that site plan should be done, meaning that it's approved by the licensing surveyor, countersigned by the regional surveyor.
Okay.
But those initial checks, usually people give you some drafts plan, is to indicate to you the boundaries of the site for you to use as a basis of the check. Then when you are ready to do documentation, then they rather go into specificity of getting it. But the site plan will have certain characteristics. They are basic with every site plan. There will be grid lines, there will be a definition of the exact parcel of land, the distances, the area, the locality. Those are basic things that will come with every site plan.
So you do a search, and then the person who is selling the land to you, it's in their name. What do you do?
You can do further due diligence. Go to the neighborhood, talk to neighbors, find out, have you seen anyone coming onto this piece of land? Maybe I'm interested. This person says he owns it. I've done my search at Lands Commission. It's in his name. But perchance, have you observed anyone coming onto this land, maybe claiming same to be his or not? Because there are times your grantor would have already sold it to someone, but the person hasn't registered his interest yet. So when you still check our records, it will still be, say, in Timothy's name, but probably he's already sold to you. But when I make inquiries in the neighborhood, someone might have observed to say that, oh, there's this lady or this gentleman who usually comes to either weed or clear the land. You get to meet the person, talk to the person, find out what is your business with the land. If not, they would let you know, oh, this land we haven't seen, nobody has come to it, we know it's for this person. Then you can continue and negotiate price with the seller. And then once you agree on the price, you agree on how the payment is supposed to be done, because at the end of the day, he needs to be able to give you an indenture, a document which you would register. So once you agree on how the payment is going to be done, then you know, okay, I'll give him full, and then in 2 weeks he'll give me an indenture, or I'll give him half, he prepares the indenture, he signs as signed, and then I give him the other part.
Okay. Yeah. I remember about 4 years ago, somebody took me to a piece of land. I mean, there was no neighbors around.
Yes.
It was just a bare, like, big place.
Yeah.
So in that situation, who do I go to make those inquiries? Who do I ask?
Then in that situation, you rely on whatever documentation the person is giving you, and then the search that you are doing from our office.
Okay. How long does the search take?
We currently give a maximum period of a month.
1 month?
Yes, a maximum period, meaning it could be done earlier. In some cases, the site plans are quite big, so the information that we need to retrieve will be a bit more than that. So we do a little bit over, but a month.
How much do you pay for that?
It's 55 cedis for an acre. As the land size increases, the fee graduates by 10 cedis addition. Our fees are fixed by Parliament, so it's an LI of Parliament. So they are fixed fees by statutory fees.
So if I want a fast track?
Currently, we don't have a fast track system. The argument that when Lands Commission was going for a fee increase, they proposed a certain fast track system. The view of Parliament is that every Ghanaian must be treated. Improve your system so that you don't concentrate only on the fast track system. So we have a one track system which is supposed to serve everybody and serve it well. We don't run a fast track system.
So if I come and somebody wants to see me, and you know, that is not the legit way.
Well, as we say, we are a service provider. Any regulator, I often say we suffer the same think that other regulators suffer, like DVLA, like Food and Drugs. There are people hanging around who assume that they can do something faster than for you. But the right thing to do would be to pay your fees correctly, and then wait out the system. Sometimes, like I know you, let's be honest, so you come by and you say hello. Sometimes there's some agency, we do searches for government agencies which are urgently need something. You can at least place some on a certain agent's track. But, largely everybody's...
But you don't pay extra for that?
No, not officially.
Okay. All right. With that cleared, so you've done the search and you seem to be on the right path.
Yes.
But you have to transfer into your name.
Yes.
I guess that's where the issue is. How challenging is that process of transferring the document into your own name?
Well, Manuel started by showing you the indentures, which are supposed to be signed by all the parties, signed by both you and the person who is giving it to you. Sometime in 1974, we had the conveyancing decree which defines how this document should be done. And they are supposed to be done by solicitors. That's what the law says. What happens in most times is that the grantors just get somebody with some experience replicates a document for you. In some cases, it might be good, it might be useful. In some cases also, there might be challenges with the way in which this is translated. So the advice is to ensure that both the grantor, you, the person buying, and the person selling are using the right professionals in terms of drafting of this document.
Okay.
Once that is done and both of you have signed, then the processes are laid out. You do an oath of proof at the High Court. You come and pay what we call the stamp duty, which is a tax which is regulated by the Stamp Duty Act. Lands Commission administers this on behalf of GRA. Then you go into the registration. I'm sure that's where your concern mostly is, that they transfer into my name. After these steps are taken, then now Lands Commission will charge you fees for registration. And now what we do is in Accra and Kumasi and little parts of the central region, the Kaswa area, we do what we call the land title registration, which is backed by law. In all the other regions, we also do the deeds registration, which is the Act 122. So Lands Commission will then take your document and go through a process of validating that grant and being sure that it's not contrary to a previous grant, or that the document has been drafted well by the parties, that the site plan meets a certain requirements, and then finally the Lands Commission will register.
The way you said it nicely, like it's a smooth process.
People complain. People complain a lot. And I'm sure Maunyo will speak to some of the many problems that we face in reviewing these documents, because the quality of the documents and the nature of the grant would affect largely how we go about the process. That's why we often say somebody is quicker, somebody is faster. The assumption is that there's some underhand dealings going. But Manuel can speak to a few of the challenges that we face, or Ruth can speak to a few challenges that we face.
So, like he said, the preparation of the document is guided by provisions of a law. So when you submit the document for processing, we just don't accept it and put in our records. When we submit, we check our records. Timothy says he owns the land and he's giving to me. Do we have any record that indeed the land Timothy is giving to me belongs to me? That's the first step. Sometimes you check and you realize that no, Timothy is not the right person to give to me. Yes, he belongs to, say, this family, but per the records that we have, he's not the family head to grant, or he's not a signatory to the family. So at the first instance, your process is truncated. You either have to go back to the grantor and get that part rectified, or the form in which the thing is prepared. There are certain things that have to be captured in this document. Are those things all there as provided for by law? Like I said, most of the time people don't get the right professionals to do the drafting. They just get someone who has the experience and they prepare. So they bring it, you read through and you realize that no, this does not conform to what the law says, because this is a contractual document where the buyer is telling the person buying to do certain things, and the person buying is also agreeing to do the certain things. So we have to be sure that before we put it in our record, which is public, is it in that form? If at that stage it is not right, you have to go back. We check the site plan. Like you said, the site plan by law is also to be done in a certain form. Is it in that form? If it is not, it has to go back. You get it? So all those issues can either slow your process, let it go faster, or truncate it, or so. You need to get the right professionals to guide you so that once you submit it, you're sure that your processes will move smoothly.
So I know quite a number of people who don't immediately go through the process.
Yes.
So they buy, they probably even build, and then they have the document that was initially given to them. It is only when they feel, oh, maybe it's time for me to do the transfer. That's when we come to you, the Lands Commission, and you tell us, oh, you need to get this, you need to get. But at that time I can't even trace the person I bought the land from.
And so then that's why it's one of the essential parts of land transactions, like any other transaction, is ensuring that you go through the process of registration. What has been the culture is that even in the past, people just use receipts on the assumption that they have paid and they have gotten some receipts. What we've not done too well is educating people that agency in registration is very critical. Assuming your grantor was a dishonest person, in quotes, or he by error gave the same parcel to both of us. She got hers in 1996, kept it under her bed. I got mine in 2006. I came and I did the registration. We will not know her record because she's not giving it to us. It's a public agency. So we may proceed with it only for you to come years after and now come and blame the registry. Oh, I had this many years ago. The first question is, why did you sleep on your rights? And the framers of the law saw that. So they said, it's first in time to submit it for registration. Just in case you miss that, then you have to go to court to go and litigate and let the court pronounce who is the right person.
But that's not your business.
That's not our business. And that can also stall our process because we often set examples of places where there have been chieftaincy conflicts where for years we've not been able to register because there's an injunction or there's a court order or there are notices of litigation. That doesn't become our business again. We have to wait and obey what the court will say. So the agency registration is very important. It's something that we've lost on us for many
There's a famous card you give to people, the yellow card. And that has become like license to go ahead and put up a structure. Please, how important is your yellow card?
Well, we've even abandoned the yellow card. We found out that it was giving us problems. The history of the yellow card was, when like I discussed, the law said first in time to submit for registration. So like every other thing, when you submit, you get a certain receipt. Like you go to the hospital, you get a hospital card to show that you are coming to see. So the yellow card was just evidence that you've lodged your documents for registration. Unfortunately for us, the final certificate also was yellow.
Oh.
And it's a yellow document that looks like this. So people began to mistake the submission as a guarantee that the process would end by all means in my favor.
Okay.
So that is not it. It was just evidence that you have submitted your document and the commission is going through its all processes to check and be sure you meet the criteria for registration. It doesn't mean in the end you'll get a certificate.
Okay.
It might be rejected along the line. And because the processes of registration also takes time, some assemblies, which grant permits for building, began to take that as a means of evidence that at least you are trying, you've attempted to register, and it sort of caused certain misconception. People got yellow cards, put it in their pocket, and went to sleep on the assumption that they have the certificates.
The first time I got a yellow card, I was excited because they said, Charlie, it means that you've gone far.
So you've not gone far at all. You've just submitted. And the processes to go through are quite a bit after the yellow card. So in 2015, the Lands Commission thought and said this confusion was causing us problems. So we've even abandoned the yellow card now.
So there's no yellow card?
Yes, now, if you had an old yellow card, yes, it will be useful for tracking your document if you still had with us. But now we have what we call the acknowledgement slip. Which is just a simple slip indicating to you your document has been received, what date it was received. We are daring enough to begin to even give you a proposed date by which it should be completed. There are phone numbers where you can follow up.
Which usually turns out not to be.
Well, because of the many things we've discussed, if it is smooth, like I always say, if you've had experiences of buying from, let me say, legitimate bodies, like I don't want to use only the government institutions, but people who have really gone through the processes to register. When you are registering, the process is not that cumbersome. It goes through, it might take some time, but it will be in and around the time we are giving to you. The challenge, as you were saying, if the stool has not registered it, you are the first person registering. We are investigating title, we want to be sure the grantors are right. So often when people finish and they get the land title certificate, that's when the excitement should go through the roof, because at that time, when you are assigning to somebody or when you are subleasing to somebody, it's an easier process because your records are with us, and therefore it's easier to do.
You use assign and sublet.
Yes.
Please, is there a difference?
Yes, there is a difference. It's just legal nomenclature. We are just borrowing it. It's just assignment will mean you are giving all your interest. So I have it, and I'm giving all to you. I'll sublet or sublease, meaning that I'm giving you some of my interest.
Okay.
And when that interest ends, you might come back to me to renew. Also, it's just terms that we use.
But can the Lands Commission help me to find land? Can you, for instance, tell me where land is available?
Well, for that, no. For state lands, maybe yes. But for lands belonging to the stools and the families, no, because we don't have any control over them. But as managers of state land, if you need state land or public land for a certain purpose, you can apply to us. If there is any available that is suitable for your need, we will let you know.
We must have set a basis for why government land was created, even in the first place. Power of eminent domain comes from the Constitution. Housing, government has always seen housing as a critical need. So since the 50s, government land that was acquired by government that became available for housing was seen to be given to individuals, Ghanaians. So any Ghanaian, to be given to them at a subsidized rate, so that they can have the money that they would have used to purchase. They would have taken it and use that money to develop. So it's like government was using the land as a means of facilitating housing. That's how come it formed Housing Corporation. That's how come it formed TDC. Government then intervenes, acquires the land, gives it to it. So individuals benefited through that process. We must say that over time, people have found out that maybe the subsidized prices and the fact that land becomes limited means that there are only few people rushing for that small land, and maybe it may give room for speculators who, because everybody is a Ghanaian. If you apply, you are supposed to get it. If I apply, if she applies. But if it is the land available is small, maybe there might be some rent seeking, and that's where people are alarmed by the fact and saying that this land is valued at so much. But the reason why you see the cantonments, the airports, and you see the structures that are there is because government facilitated housing maybe at a certain subsidized rate, and therefore quickly within a short period of time you see a house up, and it has helped us in terms of property rates. There are other means by which government can get money through that form of intervention. So yes, we agree that it may seem ridiculous up front, but it's a policy that has continued from the 50s up to currently.
That is to say that whether you go through the Lands Commission or not, you still have to pay crazy money for such lands.
Yes.
So this whole process of, I remember when your call center first opened.
Yes.
Your service center.
Yes.
You said bring all the documents together, and then you would get your title within 3 months.
Yes.
Is this still the same?
It's even been reviewed by government to 1 month. So, I mean, our ambitious, or we thought was very good 3 months, has been further be reduced.
And tell me if you've recorded any success.
Well, we did, let's be honest, we did a certain current analysis that put us 7 months plus for first registrations. If you were transferring, we were doing less than 3 months.
Okay.
And if you do the same analysis in other regions where titling was not the main, like deeds registration in Hoford, in the Volta region, for instance, we're getting averagely 6 weeks, based on the analysis of the documents that we had completed. So we have made gains somewhere. Let's think of Ghana as a whole country. We may not have made 100% gains in Accra, which is where the hustle and bustle and the pressure is largely. So the government says 1 month. What the government is doing currently is they've virtually sourced for a certain fund and found out that the real problem we have in land administration is a certain way of survey to fly the whole country, get all our maps digitized, some intervention that would help us meet the targets that government is looking for. So truth be told, we are not there, but all the structures are working. And mind you, we have come from a history where we didn't used to even give times at all, and people were just walking in the dark, to at least attempting to give some time and attempting to hold ourselves by that time. That doesn't mean we've made it all, but people have come and had good experiences.
So ideally, like roughly, we say in
yes,
Ghana.
so we still give you, even when you get the slips, we still hold ourselves by the 3 months.
Okay.
And working towards the 1 month. But we want to say when people come and everything it's okay, everything is kosher. They can make it sometimes, I say the average is 7 months, but some people make it maybe 5 months, some make it 6 months, some would make it a little bit earlier, maybe in a few cases 3 months, but for transfers, like if you have a certificate you are transferring, that one.
Okay. So Ruth, can I be making follow-ups?
Yes, you can.
Nobody will be angry with me, be
Not
rude
at all.
with me,
Not at
because
all.
it is my own document that I am chasing.
Not at all. Even per the system, when you submit your document, we take your details, your phone number, very critical. So at every stage of the process, we send you a text message. We let you know where it is gotten to. So even if you don't receive the text message, you can still walk to the office and do a follow-up, and we'll let you know where the process has gotten to and then where next it would move to.
In addition to that, we have phone numbers. A phone number, we have a phone number that's right behind. People say it's not a 24-hour, it works during our work hour time. So it's the 8:30 to roughly about 4:30.
And somebody will always pick up within the working hours.
Yes, it's right before a piece. So in our client service, it's right before the inquiry desk. So the officer sitting right there has the phone there. So you call, you mention what we call your job number. He keys it in there, and there he can
give you an update.
That this is a process and this is where we are. It's all to cut down the legwork in between us. If you can find a way of inquiring, even though Ghanaians, I must say, are more comfortable with coming all the way. They feel that there's a personal feel, but those people have called, made inquiries, and they've been told, you are here now, you have to do this.
I had my own fair share of experience because my MCE is Accra, but my land is in Eastern Region. And utilities and things sometimes is shared between Accra and then the Eastern Region. But I also realized that mine wasn't a title, it was a deed. And I remember going back and forth, so what's the difference? So please explain. If I have a deed, is it the same as a land title?
So, will you do that? So a deed is just the base. Every document would arise from what we call the indenture popularly. Every transaction would arise, as Ruth explained. The deed registration system and the title registration system is just forms of registration that we practice now. So since 1962, we've been doing the deed registration. It means that you submit these documents. They are vetted, go through a process, and these same documents are returned to you with the requisite stamps and recorded in public records. That's the deeds. For the title, there's just little advantages that in 1986, after we have been doing these SRP reforms, we decided to go the title way. And title way is a tourist system copied from the British way of doing things. So we'll take that, what we call the indenture, take it through a process of investigation of title and affirm for you and give you what we call a land title certificate. The difference with this is that it's state guaranteed. State is saying, I've investigated your title, I have put my seal on this transaction. I have decided that if you are to lose this land through some ways, government would find a way of settling that. That's the two systems. We piloted it in Accra, took it to parts of Ashanti, but its implementation is quite a detailed thing. So government has, that's why we say we are trying to fly the country now. It has stopped government from further expanding to the other regions. So anywhere title appears, deeds vanish. Yes, so that's just all. So tomorrow, if Koforidua or Eastern Region is declared as a title registration, we'll abandon the deeds registration system and carry out the title.
But do I have same rights?
Yes, it's
so
same rights.
My deeds doesn't mean it is mine.
It is yours. It's yours as far as the contract says. So it's the same thing. This one doesn't give you new rights. It just affirms what you and your landlord have agreed on. Government cannot give you rights beyond what you've negotiated. So it's the same thing.
So the 99 years, and then these days some people are doing 50. But I realize that your attention readily doesn't go there.
No, because it's contractual. I own the land. I have the right to give you what I want. So it's negotiation. Depending on what use you want to put it to, then we negotiate. So I have up till 99 to give you. I can decide to give you 10. I can decide to give you 25. I can decide to give you 50. It just happened that in the past, for residential purposes mostly, they used to give 99. But most of the landowners now have stopped doing the 99. They either do 50 or 70.
So after the 50, do I take my house and you take your land back?
No, you see, that's why I said that this thing is contractual. you have to read it and understand. The law says that when I give it to you bare, you're supposed to develop. At the end of the term that I'm giving you, you're supposed to surrender the land with everything on it back to me, and everything on it in good state.
That's what it means?
Yes, everything on the land in good state. So if it is a farm, you have to surrender it back to me with the crops and everything in good state. If it is property, structure, the structure has to be in a good state that you surrender back to me. So when you take it, whatever you do on the land, after the 50 or 70 or 99 years.
This is scary.
but
everything
also
goes back to...
They'll write something, say it's a review, you can do a renewal, you can apply for extension from your landlord. So it's contractual. But when the years are up, often they say in law that not to unreasonably withhold a renewal. So you, the tenant, can apply to your landlord or his successor. By then, he would have passed, so you apply to them. Usually, landlords are not in the interest of taking or coming to sit in your house. What will happen is that means that renewal will come at a cost, which more often people don't avail their minds to. So in areas, this is that we're given in the 50s. Parents have passed, given it to their kids, and they thought they have inherited good property, only to come back and to find out that there's a cost element to the renewal. So it's a renewal element. In the current land bill that is being discussed, the bill seeks to almost guarantee renewal because it can foresee a certain problem happening in the future where the landlord tries to resist and therefore take over. So it's looked at ensuring the rights and interests of the people. So it guarantees renewal, but to say renewal will be at a negotiable cost. Land is not for only us, but for the generations to come. So you must perceive, if you're a chief and you gave it to your kids at that time, or the new chief at that time, may need some money also to help the stool and all that. So it's a system that we need.
Let's talk about costs. So by the time I am done with the registration, how much of my money would have come to you, the Lands Commission?
It depends on the size of the plot. So the bigger the plot size, the more you pay. Because
can we use the 10 by 70? Is it 100 by 70? That's the normal one in Accra these days.
Yes, well, per layout, we use acres. We don't use plots because with the service system, the plot sizes are either defined in acreage or in hectares.
Okay.
But the normal plot sizes that we talk about is like 0.16 of an acre. So our fees for the standard fees is anything within the first acre. So from 0.01 to 1.00 acre, you pay a certain standard fee. And then as the...
Which is what?
For the registration now, you pay everything up front. You pay for the plan preparation, the publication, and the processing fee. I think if it is within an acre, it's at 710.
That is a first-time registration.
Okay.
And then if it's a second transaction, it's cheaper because you will not be advertising and doing something. So around 420 you would have paid for that. But that's, mind you, less your stamp duty. Which is a tax on the transaction. You would have done a search sometime along. All those things are costs that people don't add.
And you have executed the oath as well.
So those are the costs that will be.
But you agree that people pay a whole lot more than what you've just mentioned?
Well, I agree that people pay all, but I ask her, who do they pay to? That's the question I ask. Has somebody walked into Lands Commission and got a bail, for instance, that has asked him to pay far more? Because in the past, people did a lot of legwork. People consult all kinds of people. Still, the same job, you can consult a solicitor or some agent who will say, I'll do it for you for X amount of money. That is a private transaction that has nothing to do with us because the person thinks he doesn't have time to come in and sit there. So it's, if you do that outside our system, that's a private transaction.
I tell you what, quietly, I think I've become an advocate because I rather encourage people, just go.
Yes, just go. Yes,
because it's easy to go through the process yourself. But just like renewing a driving license or getting a driving, people always prefer to use third parties because I think in our minds, the process is
cumbersome process. Yes.
What happens to people's document? I've had at least one experience of somebody whose document got missing through the process. You said bring everything to the client service center and then the thing gets lost. How?
Well, it's a manual process, unfortunately. everything, all documents are handled manually. So you submit your documents at the client service, someone manually picks it up to the back office for the process to go through. It is handled, moved manually from one office to the other. We admit that that process has its challenges, but there are times that through this manual handling, some of the documents get mixed up. So they don't get missing. They cannot get missing. Once it's been received into our office, it cannot get missing. The document itself cannot walk out of our office. But then, because of the manual handling, sometimes they get mixed up with certain documents.
So with that, whose responsibility would that be? I mean,
there are always schedule officers who look for it. No, because every unit has a head, and the head is responsible, and every officer is responsible for the jobs that they receive. So if it comes to me, and then the mix-up happens, together with that officer with the unit head, they look for it and they always find it. It's unfortunate that sometimes it takes time because of the manual movements, but then we always find it.
I know one man who had to go and get all the documents again together, and he still has not been able to register.
Well, you see, like a government agency, we have compliance issues. If you come and we cannot find it, the person is agitated, they can say, okay, if you have copies of the document, we are not charging you again. If you can lodge that with us, let's be dealing with this whilst we look for it. It's not the ideal situation, but people often say, oh, I have documents. What is it that you are looking for? Let me just lodge it back with you. So they receive it again, and the idea is once it's been lost once, the client becomes agitated. The officer who receives it, even though he's received it as lost, still has processes to go through. But the person lodges it, and the person's assumption is that once it's lost and I've brought it back, then everything is fine. You should be able to do it quickly for me and I'll get it. That document he re-lodged will still be in the system. Will still be going through the processes that it's supposed to go through. I'm not sure the second time he said it's lost, but what he will say is that I've not still got my land title certificate. So that document will be received, and unfortunately, when you resubmit it, the processes take steps back.
All over.
Because maybe some things may have been done before we got to the place where, unfortunately, we couldn't find it. That's why we are looking at scanning documents. If we scanned and moved documents, then all these issues, because electronic copies would be there as a backup. Unfortunately, we don't do a scan now. In the limited form, we are thinking of doing what the Ghana Enterprise Land Information System will do, which is scanning documents, and we're hoping by the end of this year we would have started a pilot of some areas. So that will cure the problem of these documents manually getting lost. But as long as it's human being carrying physical documents, there's always that gap, that 5% gap of some documents, unfortunately, that we do not find out of.
In wrapping up, there are people who are watching from other parts of Accra. Can they lodge complaints or can they follow up with documents? Is it prepared from Accra? Let me ask.
Well, the Lands Commission is decentralized, so every region has a Lands Commission, and the offices are in the capitals of those regions. So if, say, the land is in Eburi, you cannot come to Accra. You need to go to the Lands Commission in Koforidua. Unfortunately, because we haven't centralized our records and the information flow, if you've lodged your documents in, say, Koforidua and you come to Accra, we will not be able to check and give you an update. You'd have to go to Koforidua. So if it's in, say, Kaswa, then you need to go to the Cape Coast office. If it's in Hohwe, you need to go to Ho. But as I said, the reforms are ongoing, so we hope that in the near future, if you should lodge it in, say, Tamale, and you happen to get to Accra, we can still check and let you know that the document you lodged in Tamale is completed or has reached the stage and will move to the next
in the future.
stage. Yes.
So let's finally end with this. The land title and the deeds you showed me.
Yes.
Can two people have the same title?
No, technically by law, it shouldn't be. However, there are few cases where in the process, so you all lodge documents, and we are going through process of checking. Like he said, if both go to different officers, because it's manual, both officers recommend to different people to sign, it's possible that at the end, when it's time to index it in the records, in very rare situations, we might find out that, but the same parcel of the land is what we're giving to Mr. X. It's the same one. So we have internal processes of seeking to resolve it In cases where the people have taken it, it becomes subject of litigation, because if you check, you see that the grants are from the same person, most likely. The courts then will resolve who got it first, which one was a legitimate grantor. And then, as we've tried to explain, Lands Commission is registering the interests of people who have entered contractual relations, except for government land. And if you notice, in government land cases, you rarely have the problem of double grants, because the records are there. So before you would give it out, you have cross-checked. So if all families, tools, people, first are honest enough or have the appropriate records enough, that problem even wouldn't arise in the first place for us to have to deal with that. But in rare situations where that has happened, it now becomes a source of litigation. Nobody wants to yield. Everybody is blaming Lands Commission for doing it. But I think the person they should be looking at is their grantor. That, how come you gave it to me and gave it to Mr. X? Because
but how come you also registered for Mr. X and registered for me?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That if you look at our work processes, until we start doing the scanning, where at the beginning, when we receive the document, we can note that we are considering an application for Mamavi. So that as soon as another application comes, there's an automatic trigger that we are considering something for, because it's a manual process. We will never note it in the records until all our checks are done and we know that this is legitimate.
When are we moving from manual?
Oh, we are moving the start date was supposed to be in August, but we've moved into, by September, we are doing a pilot, which is starting on a smaller scale. We've chosen 4 districts in Accra to begin to see how the digital would work for us. We put teams together. This is a project that's under the Land Administration project. That's what kick-started with the client service, and this is a part of that same back office thing. So the digital will get there sooner than you think.
Well, I want to say thank you, but this is not the end of our conversation. As you may know, this is part of our series. The home series is part of a bigger conversation. It's the Habitat Fair 2018, where we're putting together all persons and organizations who have something to do with housing, complete, from the land to the complete house where you have it furnished with everything in it. We're gathering all of them. We've had our first mini clinic. The second mini clinic will happen this weekend at the West Hills Mall from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So we'll have a last conversation in the home series, so that you at home who've been watching and following can also give us a call if you have a challenge with land and you want to ask our guests. They will be back in the studio to answer all your questions. So certainly stay with us. We thank you for watching this episode, and make sure that we meet at the West Hills Mall. 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. is the second Habitat Fair mini clinic, and there's more of these conversations coming up. I want to say thank you to the Labadi Beach Hotel as well for giving us the venue to bring you these conversations. We will see you at the West Hills Mall.
Is the feeling of joy when you know you are home, where you sleep in luxury and comfort, and wake up to the breeze of the Atlantic Ocean. Aquaba to Labadi Beach Hotel, where the food is fresh and the smiles are genuine. Now you know you are home. Ghana's finest 5-star hotel, Labadi Beach Hotel. The legacy lives on.